Hi everyone, Carter Krishnaiyer here for Beyond the 90. I want to pay tribute today to the top American coach out there, and I am talking about Pellegrino Matarazzo. And I have talked about him before. My colleagues at Beyond the 90 have talked about him before. We spent a lot of time at the World Soccer Talk podcast back in the day when that existed, talking about his rise in Germany. Now, for whatever reason, and again, I don't want to be too nasty about this, but because he did not play in Major League Soccer and he did not manage in Major League Soccer, he goes below the radar of some Americans. So, he's completely transformed, I think, how American managers or managers with an American origin are viewed in Europe. And he played college soccer at Columbia. He grew up in New Jersey. He is as American as apple pie when you think about his background. But he took a road less traveled to elite football management, and particularly for an American. So he studied applied mathematics at Columbia, and he brought a logic-driven approach to kind of the way he played as a result. And so he, of course, played in Germany and was able to, in the lower divisions of German football, which, by the way, was a path a lot of Americans took in those days. He's kind of a contemporary of mine, and in fact, probably should just pick up, grab his Wikipedia here before we get too much deeper, so that I can review his CV. Which is that before I give more analysis. So he played for Columbia, as I said. He's a contemporary of mine. I was in college at the same time he was at the University of Florida. He played for 6 clubs in the German lower division structure. This was a path traveled a lot by American players at the time because the minimum salaries in MLS were really low. And there were only either 10 or 12 MLS teams, depending which era you talk about. It was 10 teams in 96 and 97. It was 12 teams from 98 till 2001. Tampa Bay and Fort Lauderdale Miami Fusion played in Fort Lauderdale. They were contracted in 2001, 2002 through 2004 or 4. It's 10 teams. Then it's back to 12 with Real Salt Lake and Chivas USA joining the league. Then eventually you get to the growth spurt, right? Toronto FC kind of changed MLS because they had this incredible fan atmosphere, and that was Club 13. San Jose came back 14, and then it was this building, right? But there weren't as many playing opportunities available, is what I'm saying. And then when you looked at USL or the A-League below it, it was chaos. You think it's chaotic now, it was even more chaotic then, although it's getting kind of chaotic. It's less stable. USL now is less stable than it felt a few years ago, but it's nothing like the early 2000s. So Matarazzo plays, and he never got capped for the U.S. men's national team. So as a result of that, he goes below the radar. And so what does he do as a coach? He kind of shows up as an apprentice to Julian Nagelsmann, who was a young. He and Nagelsmann had roomed together previously. This is part of the story at the German Academy Training Center, and Matarazzo got to know Nagelsmann well, and then Nagelsmann, of course, becomes what he becomes. A first-team manager at a very young age. He brings Matarazzo as an assistant with him to Hoffenheim, and he stayed on after Nagelsmann moved to RB Leipzig, and then he became the first-team coach of Stuttgart. Big honor for an American. Does okay, but he still gets sacked. You always get sacked, right? This is the thing about European football. Every manager gets sacked, maybe with the exception of Pep. Every manager gets sacked somewhere. And I don't think Pep's parting from Bayern, by the way, was entirely voluntary. So everybody gets sacked. So you can't say, this guy got sacked, that guy got sacked. Oh, remember when he got sacked? I mean, I made that mistake once with Luis Enrique. I said, Luis Enrique, I saw him manage at Roma. I thought he was terrible at Roma. He got sacked at Roma. Forget him. How can he manage Barcelona? Well, I was wrong, okay? And got proved doubly wrong by the job he did. He did okay with Spain, but the job he's done with PSG. This year, they're having trouble. But last season, with a squad that wasn't, he didn't have the same level of squad that Emery or Pochettino or Tuchel had there. And he won more. So Luis Enrique is a very good manager. And he made Ousmane Dembele for the first time legitimately the player we thought he'd be when he was at Dortmund. I mean, he made him best player in the world. He was the best player in the world at least last calendar year, he was the best player in the world. Matarazzo returns to Hoffenheim because he's in demand now. He's an established coach. Doesn't matter that he got sacked at Stuttgart. He did okay there. And here's what I really love about him. You can't put him in a box, okay? He's got an incredible man management skill, which is a very American trait. Bruce Arena was as good as they got in the sport of football, soccer football, for man management, believe it or not. That was Bruce Arena's great trait. Now, when people like Alexi Lala say, well, Bruce Arena could manage Arsenal, when people were criticizing Arsene Wenger 10 years ago, No, I don't go that far. No way. And to put him in the same sentence as Wenger is kind of insulting. But man management is a strength of a lot of American managers and a lot of Americans in other sports too. So he's got that. But his style is very German, pressing 3-4-3. And so obviously at Hoffenheim he lasted about a year and a half and got sacked. But then late last year, so we're talking about 4 months ago, he gets appointed. 5 months ago, he gets appointed coach of Real Sociedad, which is a club that has had a lot of foreign managers that haven't done so well. David Moyes, Chris Coleman, among others. So they're a club always willing to take a chance. It's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. So what have they done? Since moving to La Liga, he's been more possession-based than he was in his 2 stints in Germany, where they were playing kind of like a 3-2. So at Stuttgart, I would say they played a 3-2-3-2. And then at Hoffenheim, I would say they played a 3-4-3. But high pressing was a component in both what he did at both of those stops. What he's done at Real Sociedad is you see pressing, you see a sort of German influence, but you also see the fluidity and the possession-based football that you need to win in La Liga. He is an absolute blueprint for American managers. Okay, go take the path less traveled. Go to Europe and ply your trade, or work in the lower divisions here in the United States. Because of the money on off, we've had a lot of guys who jumped from USL head coaching jobs to MLS assistant jobs. That's not a good look, but you need to be able to experiment. You need to be able to be kind of tactically sound and have this tactical nous. They used to call him the mathematician in the Bundesliga because of that tactician strength and that even the way he was as a player. But he's added like this man management and fluidity piece. Well, the man management is inherent in him being American, but the fluid football, possession-based football that Sociedad has been playing the last few months is pretty has been pretty neat to watch. So they win the Copa Del Ray final the other day, and he is dismantling the tropes that you would hear about American managers overseas. Now, I think the other thing that actually did help was Jesse Marsch. When Jesse Marsch got the job at Leeds, Marsch talked sat and talked with the crew from Sky, Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, I can't remember if it was Peter Drury or if it was Kelly Cates. Kelly Cates, I think it was, whose brother, of course, is Paul Dalglish, my former boss at Miami FC, he was our manager and general manager during one of my stints at Miami FC. And I think Marsh really impressed them with his knowledge of football and of tactics and his ability to talk about the sport the way someone like Thomas Tuchel or Pep Guardiola would talk about the sport. So it's a breakthrough, but I just want to note this moment because there isn't as much talk about Mazzaro as there should be. And Matarazzo has done so much, I think, to elevate the stature of American soccer. Certainly more than the U.S. Soccer Federation is doing currently in its current state. I haven't really commented much on the Matt Crocker situation. I will. Be rest assured, I will. And I also want to mention we are going to be doing, in some discussions to do some stuff about U.S. M&T history as we approach the World Cup. So look for that in the near future. Thank you for being a patron and supporting us at Beyond the 90.